Thanks for joining the show today. My guests, I've been wanting to have them on for quite some time. They were scheduled to be part of the 2018 Don't Wait Project Tour, and our schedules didn't align. So we tried again via Zoom, and that didn't work. So here we are now, finally in 2021, and their story is timeless. So I'm so excited to have them here today. Thanks for joining me. So I'm here with Samantha Grant. We're going to talk about the house fire you had back in 2016 and the project that you and your daughters have led since then. But thanks so much for your patience in getting on the show. It took us a little while to get it all together.
So delighted to be here. And I just love what you're doing with your project. So, we're honored to be included.
Wonderful. Thanks for being here. So let's talk about how, first of all, you had a house fire. And let's just explain to the audience when that was, how it happened, and you are now in your rebuilt home, but let's go back to 2016.
So on September 23rd, 2016, I was having an ordinary morning. It was a Friday. And on Friday mornings, my husband takes the girls to a cafe and reviews their homework with them before dropping them off at school, which is quite early. So they were already gone and out of the house. I was at home with our son, who at the time was 10 months old, and our babysitter. And I was getting my backpack on to go to work. I'm a professor at Berkeley, and was just pushing the last little bit of scrambled egg in his mouth and was just about to head out the door when I heard this frantic pounding on the front door. And I was like, that's weird. What's happening? It's a really aggressive delivery man or something. And went out there, and it was this guy who is probably a worker on another construction project up the street or something, who just happened to be passing by, and he noticed smoke pouring out of the top of our house. And he was like, in Spanish, he was like, your house is on fire. Get out. Your house is burning down. And I was like, I think no, sorry, you must have a different house. There's no smoke. And he's like, come outside.
No, you didn't have any indication whatsoever.
Nothing. Everything was totally normal. No smoke detectors went off. There was no sign at all. So I step out the front door and look up, and I do see this smoke kind of billowing out of the top of the house. And so I kind of run back in, and I was like, get the baby, get the diaper bag, let's go out. I have to get the hose, because I had no experience with fire. And I'm also simultaneously calling 911.
That was my next question. Has someone called 911 at this point? So that's good.
By now, neighbors are coming out. Everyone's kind of standing there looking wide-eyed. And I'm kind of like, oh, this isn't that big of a deal. It's not that much smoke. And then I noticed some flames in between the houses. Now, in our neighborhood in San Francisco, our house was built in 1892. Every house in the neighborhood is wooden, pure wood. And they're built right up next to each other, touching, basically. And when I saw flames in that little crack in between the houses, I was like, ooh, that's not good. That's the first moment that I was like, this actually might be a big deal. Because until that moment, I was like, oh, we're just going to hose this thing down, no problem. I just was so naive. And I called my partner and was like, our house is on fire, come home right now. And his office is nearby. He ran, and he got there about 1 minute after the firefighters, which was literally 5 minutes after this all happened. So they got there very quickly, and there were just swarms of firefighters immediately on the job. As soon as they got there, I was like, oh, good, I need to go inside and grab a few things, because I didn't take a single thing. And they were like, the house is burning, lady. You're not going in. No.
So from the outside, when you're looking at this fire happening, is it mostly seem like it's happening at the top of the house? You're like, let me just go in downstairs and grab a few things?
That's what it looked like.
Because you don't realize that by now, and from their experience, obviously they know you don't go in at that point.
No. And it was already in the walls and it was coming down, and it was sort of inside the bones of the house. It wasn't just in one isolated area. It had spread all throughout the ductwork. It was inside the ducts, and it had spread throughout the walls of the house. So they were just tearing the walls open and trying to put the fire out. And at this point, there was a lot more smoke, and the fire seemed to be picking up steam. And I was kind of like, oh my God, this is really bad. And just kind of stood there, slack-jawed, watching everything burn down. And then the firefighters started like clambering up the neighboring houses onto the roof. And then they started chainsawing my roof off. And I was like, oh, okay, that's not going to be easy to fix. Because at this point, I'm still like, the house is not
like smoke damage repair.
Yeah.
Fix what was burned. And they're just trying to, now at this point, they're trying to save the other houses.
That's right.
Your house, your house is demolished. They already know it. You don't, but they do.
That's right. I think a lot of other people who have had a lot more experience with fire probably knew that too. But I was very kind of slowly taking in the details. And, you know, at that point, I did burst into tears. I was just kind of like, our house. Mm-hmm. There goes our house. And the firefighters, you know, chainsawed the roof and started just pouring fire hoses and chemical flame retardant. And it was just like, it was like they were trying to fill the house up so that it wouldn't destroy the whole neighborhood. Because in San Francisco, if one of these wooden houses catches on fire, then the whole block could go, you know, immediately.
So they were able to prevent that. Nothing else, none of the other homes burned.
None of the other homes burned, but both homes on either side of our house had some damage.
In this moment now, you're talking about one of the things that you shared in our conversations over the years is what it was, just the things, not the things that you would think like, oh, my television or my whatever. It was your daughter's favorite, blanket or, animal, stuffed animal, whatever it is. These are things that are very difficult to explain to young children, that they're gone. And where did you go that night? Did you have a place to go? I mean, you don't even really, I'd imagine you're in shock.
That is an understatement. I think we were just, I prepare for a lot of possible catastrophes. This is not one of them that I had ever dreamed would happen to us. And so when this happened, I was kind of like, okay, well, I guess we have to figure this out right now, because the insurance company was trying to put us up in some junky hotel, like in the drug district of San Francisco. And as we're kind of trying to take this in, because I have nothing, like the clothes on my back. And thank goodness I had my backpack on. So I did have my computer and my wallet and my phone. They were with me because I happened to have them on when I ran out of the house.
And then
so
your
my friend
started a GoFundMe for you soon after.
Yes.
So your friends in your neighborhood, your community rallied for you.
They really rallied.
Yeah. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about that in a little more detail and just the rebuilding, but also what we're getting to is it led you and your daughters to form a project called Fire Journal Project that we'll talk about. We'll come back in just a moment with more with Samantha. Her daughters will also join the show and talk about their hard work trying to help other people who've been through similar stories. We'll be back in just a moment. Hi, we're back. I've been talking with Samantha Grant from San Francisco. She's talking to me from her new home, the rebuild after they had a house fire in 2016. In the first segment, she shared the details of just not even knowing that it was happening and then losing everything because she just grabbed literally her backpack and of course her baby and a diaper bag. Thankfully, no one was hurt. Everyone survived the fire, as well as the neighboring homes. They were not damaged beyond repair. So you're sitting there with your daughters now. Welcome to the show, ladies. We have Silver next to her mom, her mother's right. There we are. And then we have Evie there. Say hello. Hi, girls. Thanks for being here. So we wanted to just wrap up a bit about you. You obviously have rebuilt your home. You're in your new home there. And you had a lot of neighbors and community, your friends who launched a GoFundMe for you. So let's transition a bit to, you know, the rebuild, but also just how it gave you the idea to start this next project.
Well, we were very lucky. We had a great insurance policy and were able to fulfill almost the entire policy to do our rebuild. And in the gap, some friends and neighbors of ours launched a GoFundMe for us that was filled, you know, almost instantly. We're very active in our communities, all of them. And so when we really needed it, our community really showed up for us in a huge, huge way. They fed us.
That very night we had talked about in the first segment, where did you go that very night? Just out of curiosity, since we didn't answer that question.
So my friend Nick, who lives on the corner, came up to me and said, hey, I have a friend in the neighborhood who's out of town for a week. His house is empty. I told him about your situation. He said you can go live there for the week. And I was just so moved because this is someone I've never met before. And I'm asking to go to his house with 3 kids.
Right.
You know, this is a guy who's like a single guy. His house is filled with art. It's like meticulously designed. And he was just like, of course, they need a place to stay. Yes. So that's where we stayed that first week.
One of the things that I noticed in the background is the fire extinguisher there by your wood stove. And I guess you probably have a few of those around now.
Yes, we do. We have probably like 10 fire extinguishers in this house alone. And we also installed the sprinkler system in this house, even though it was not required by code.
A really very extremely loud fire alarm.
Yeah, the fire alarm is deafening. So I don't see how we could miss it.
It's a school. It's like a school one. It sounds like the ones that you hear when you're at school, and it's like very like.
And you have a fire escape plan as well, just in case.
Yep, we have escape plans. We have, you know, all the things in place just to make sure. And I really can't encourage everyone enough to do that. Just take 10 minutes. Just think about what you would do and how you would get out. Because really nothing else matters besides the safety of your loved ones. Everything else is not
in
really
your circumstances. You were already on your way out the door and everyone was out of the house.
That's right.
So you didn't have to think about that necessarily. And one quick question too, just as a follow-up, did alarms ever go off in the house?
No.
Even with all of that going on? Yeah.
I mean, we didn't hear them. They may have eventually gone off, but the problem was the smoke was going into the ductwork.
So it wasn't filling the house.
It wasn't filling the house, yeah.
So after our fire, then not long after, there was some other fires. There was the Santa Rosa fires. And our first thought was like, what's happening to those kids? Where are they going? Because we went to someone's house who we didn't know, but there's just one of us. Now there's all these people who are losing their homes. Where are they going? And what's happening to the kids specifically?
That's a very good point. One house fire compared to this entire community losing their homes.
So we decided that we wanted to do something. And we found these notebooks. I had gotten a notebook from someone who I had no idea. They wrote me a letter on the front cover and they signed it. And they said, "Dear friend, I hope that I think it was like, I hope you have a good day and you can write down anything you want in this notebook," signed, and then their name and a little drawing of a cat. And then I had that notebook, and the first thing I wrote was, my house burned down, I'm sad. And then later we found those notebooks and we were like, what about those other kids? Why don't we be the person saying, dear friend, why don't you have a place to write
And how
down?
old were you then, Silver?
I was 9.
Okay. And how about you, Evie? How old were you then?
I was 6.
Okay. So go ahead. Sorry, I just wanted to establish how old you were, having these really wonderful thoughts of others, looking out for others. And so that sparked an idea in you to do the same for other people. So what was your next step, and how did Thanksgiving tie in with that?
The idea sparked around Thanksgiving because that was when we were thinking about others and saying thanks. And it was when we had moved into an apartment. So I was like, thank gosh we have somewhere to live, because where we lived, we could see homelessness almost every day because we lived right in front of a place where there was a lot of it. So I was just really thinking about, thank gosh we have somewhere to live. And then when these other fires happened, it really made me wonder, where are they going? Where are they going to live?
Mm-hmm. And Evie, one of the first things that she did after our fire was write down a list. And she wrote down on one side in yellow the things that had been saved, and on the other side in blue the things that had been lost. And she said, why did you do that?
I said that it could help me remember the things that I've lost and think about what I had now, what I had in the time, instead of.
Do you remember what was on the side of the list that you still have?
I think it was my Lammy, which is my favorite stuffy, my hoodie, I think
It wasn't much.
Yeah.
it was only a few things.
Those couple important things.
Yeah.
And so how do you get from that to the fire journal project, which is absolutely fantastic? I know that you started a GoFundMe for that after your friends and family had started a GoFundMe for you in those initial phases of your own fire. And your GoFundMe for the fire journal project exceeded your goal of $10,000. So let's talk about how you get from receiving that journal and deciding, what will we do next? Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll finish your story and share with the audience what they can learn about your project. We'll be back in just a moment. We're back. We're talking with Samantha Grant and her 2 daughters, Silver and Evie. They all together got the idea from their own living through their own house fire to help other young people who are going through the same experience, and they launched the Fire Journal Project. We're going to talk more detail about that now. Thank you again, ladies, for being here. So we know that you were inspired to think about journals and helping other young people who were also losing their homes in fires nearby in your community. You live in California, in the San Francisco area. So how do you go from that to starting the Fire Journal Project?
So the kids came to me and said, we want to do something. And it was really their idea that we want to give journals to other kids. So I said, okay, great. If you want to do this, I will help you create a GoFundMe, which is what our friends had done for us. And I just snapped some pictures right there. They were not like very glamour shots. It was just like them standing in their bedroom, snap. And they each gave me their words. They said to me exactly what they wanted me to put in the GoFundMe. And those words are now on the website that we have for the Fire Journal Project. But it was just very simple and so sweet and so true. We just want to help other kids that might be going through the same thing we're going through, basically. So we put up a GoFundMe and shared it with our community. And it was fully funded within a month. And we were able to buy thousands of journals. I did some, back wheeling and dealing with a distributor and got a good deal on it. And Then we put stickers on them. So we set up a little assembly line in the apartment where we were staying, and stickered and stamped all the journals. And then we had to figure out how to get them to these communities that were suffering.
Evie and Silver, did it help you during that time? You must have felt a bit displaced. Your things are gone. You're not in your bedrooms. You're not in your home. And you're in an apartment, which you mentioned, of course, being grateful for. But did working on this project help you also cope with your loss by knowing you're helping other people when they'll be dealing with their loss of their own home in a fire?
I think it did, because we knew that we had gotten off really well from what happened. We had a place to stay. We were in the process of rebuilding. So I wasn't feeling terrible about it. I was still really, really sad about missing my stuff. I remember the day the house burned down, I was wearing this like American Girl doll matching pants. So my doll had the same pants. And then my mom told me, she was like, we don't have any of your other clothes. And I was like, oh, thank God I was wearing these pants. But
your favorite pants. How about you, Evie? Did it help you to feel better inside by putting these journals together for other people?
Yeah.
Yeah. Knowing you were doing some good. So we have a couple of minutes left. I just want to let the people know what you've created from that. I know that you've distributed to schools. I know that you created thousands of journals. Tell us about some of the people you know you've helped, or the feedback you've received from the people who've received, the young kids who've received these journals from you.
I was just like, how are we going to get these journals out to people? And so my first thought was, okay, maybe there's some way through the school system. Because first we were like, we can just go and stand in the corner. But the problem is that all these communities have just been completely disrupted. So how do you get to the kids? And ultimately, I just contacted the school district and found a number of schools where there was an administrator who was willing to help facilitate. And essentially, the thinking was that this has been a trauma for the entire community. So the journals actually went into whole classrooms. It wasn't just for the kids who had lost their home. It was for everyone in the community, all the kids who had been through this enormous trauma of their entire community being burned down. So we've gotten some amazing responses. We've gotten notes from individual families. We've gotten photos that we put up on our blog of kids using the journals and have them being distributed in classrooms. And very sadly, the Paradise Fire happened not long after. I think it was the following year. And so once again, we kind of put the wheels in motion, and a friend of ours, she's actually through the school, the social worker was heading up there, and we were able to send a whole bunch of journals with her to directly distribute to kids who might need them.
And this is an ongoing project for you. You've found something that you can do to help others, and obviously, unfortunately, there'll continue to be fires in communities, and you'll continue to hopefully distribute these journals.
That's the plan. We're all sort of doing what we can, and we continue to fundraise. We continue to stay in touch as they're needed. And what we love more than anything else is for anybody who's actually using the journals to let us know what they're up to and how they're being used.
And on the website, there's a way to, if you want journals, you can reach out, and we have more to give.
Yep.
And we want them to be used. So if you want them, please
let us know.
Well, wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm glad it finally worked out. I hope to meet you at some point. California is not that far from here, so we'll stay in touch. Thanks for all your hard work and all that you're doing in your community, ladies.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.